When we started the Alexa project in 2005-ish, we had 3 cameras in mind. The top-of-the-line camera, kind of camera which does everything, what the Alexa nowadays is, and then an entry model, what the Amira is. But then there was the financial crisis, and we did not address the top-of-the-line camera, but rather concentrated on a kind of entry model and the Alexa. And so since the very early we had this kind of model in mind. And it proved to be very viable because we would not have had a sensor at that time. And you can imagine a sensor of this size is an expensive undertaking, and you better do the smaller things, so go in baby steps. And then if you have proven that, then you go next step. And it was not more than 1.5 years when we really started the project, so it was rather fast. But as we know a lot of what the Alexa ingredients have, we just scale it. Faster processing, new electronic technology allows that, faster, higher bandwidth memory. So working together with Codex, they did not stand still, so there was improvement. So everything accommodated the kind of 65mm to become a viable option. And then we triggered off the sensor design and crossed the fingers, because that's the most critical part. And on Christmas time we saw the first black and white good-looking images, and then we celebrated and said, okay, that's going to happen. Well, the first batch would be about 30 cameras. It's not a camera, it's a camera system. What we want to make sure is that the inherent potential of the capture is really brought to the screen. So the camera will consist of the camera head, the lenses, which are a necessity, and the kind of station which does the processing in terms of correcting the data, refining the data, securing, so backups and whatever you need to support editorial and what have you. So that would be a complete system, and that probably in the first run will come with somebody who is very knowledgeable, who knows what needs to be done, so that there are no expectations, and then there is later on the finding that something went wrong, that is too an expensive undertaking, and the movies we believe this camera will be used would not be the ones who would tolerate that. Well, we still aim, we are all late summer, but we still want to have that launch happening in October timeframe, so we were very close. So we probably need to say how we do that. Whenever we build new technology, we first do a proof of concept. So we first do all sorts of study, but then we build a real thing. But this real thing is not the final footprint. So it's a lot larger. You can photograph with it, but you will not put it on a set. So for us and for technical interested DPs, that's viable. So it has the real lens mount, the sensor, everything is done, but the form factor, the functionality would not allow real world production. And that is how we do our first analysis of images, and that is what we show to prospect clients. And then when we are confident that the tool we have provided are right or need to be modified in what way, then we start to design the final electronics for the camera, and that is not in the process, but it's in a very final process. So right now the final cameras are assembled and brought up, and as it's not a trivial piece of technology, there are hiccups here and there, but we are very confident that we will be able to have a pre-show next week at CINEC, and then launch later in October for the product, and then make the first cameras available for evaluation. So we started with the lenses we used to have, as we had a 65mm film camera, and obviously a 65 digital camera accommodates the same lenses. And on lenses it's not like with electronics, it's not that every 2 years there's a new generation. So that is valid for a lot longer time. So we have our Zeiss Hasselblad lenses as an offering existing, but there is a new breed of lenses where the prototypes are also becoming ready by the time the camera will be shown to the customer. So there will be a full range of lenses, and again, if you accommodate that, you get the kind of focal lengths and the specification, because I do not want to interfere with what they're planning there is. And I do not know actually, because lenses is not what Arri does, so the lenses are not an Arri design. So those are sourced differently. But one also needs to point out that not saying that lenses on a 65mm camera are not of importance, but the demand scales with the size. So it's a lot more difficult the smaller the aperture of a sensor or the film format is to produce the same quality image, and it relaxes if you go larger, which is a good thing to have. But probably for the ones who had experience in working on 65 captures on 70mm films, maybe as assistants or whatever, because that's a bit back to consider what had been the beauty, what had been the challenges, because none of them is going away. The options will be very much the same, so all the beauty and also the kind of skills which are required. So it's probably not a trivial piece of equipment to master, yeah? But if you master it, it is worthwhile to. And I need to say we've done a fair amount of evaluation films where we wanted to position ourselves in terms of where needs digital cinematography to be equal to what film can do. And we have done with Bill Bennett, the ASC cinematographer, 65mm piece which was called As Good As It Gets. That was, I would say, 6 years, 8 years ago, maybe even longer. And that was used throughout the world as reference material, because capture never had this quality, yeah, in all sorts. So I brought it to Japan, where they did ultra high def at that time, great displays but no sources. All of the sudden we saw this, and so we know what the beauty of 65mm format is. And it is also a question of format. It is not just as easy to say its resolution and colorimetry. It is more, it's an aesthetics, and it's not me and engineer talking about that. It is really cinematographers who enjoyed to be able to work with this format. That is also something that we are now reaching out for DPs who experienced, who used to work in this format, because we want to have some early kind of showpieces, demo reels, so to say, not exploring where 65 was not meant for, but first what was it used in the old days, and how does it work today? And then obviously what can you do nowadays? There's a lot more flexibility in electronic acquisition. But we would not object, obviously, if somebody would ask for 5 camera systems for the entire film. But probably that's not the case. And as I was mentioning before, it only makes sense to use technology when the benefit hits the screen. And that is where we obviously are trying hard to access those projects and support those projects and offer the technology for that. For us that will be in a mixed environment. You have so many point of view and where mobility and the form factor is so important. There 65 is not real viable option, and probably it would not finally produce any different image, because if you move camera objects you have motion blur, and so why do you need to sample so fine detail if there is no fine detail? But then, that is what I was mentioning, then you need to make sure, if with all this effort you have all this great fine detail of master shots, then you need to make sure that you are not losing that due to compression or strange scalings or whatever. And you need to make sure that that ends up on the cinema screen. So it needs, beside of what we do, it needs some additional refinement in the whole chain. So in post-production I'm not worried so much that the technology is there, the understanding is there, but the mechanism to deliver to screens, there is today not a real opportunity, so that also needs to be built. But it's probably a hen and egg, so if there's convincing material and people are pushing hard and there are directors who can request and make things happen, then probably that is accelerated. Why did we choose Codex? Because it was successful, and why should we change that? And also, Codex knows very, very well about high-end filmmaking. And I will not say you need to handhold each and every aspect of filmmaking, but where you put something critical new in, you would need to make sure that things are not misunderstood and confused, and probably some shortcuts which look great are being used. You need to do it properly. And differences on this level are going to be very subtle, because who is going to see details in contrast and resolution on set? So you need to rely that you're not losing anything of what you captured in your whole processing and kind of workflow environment. And when it gets further in post, as we do have the Arri partner program, so we know all the companies and have relationships, so we will offer to remain in native resolution, so people can use pixel for pixel or use a 4K filtered version. So I think there will be differentiations made, whoever is going to work on that. And again, it's not the kind of common way, because if you consider to use that, you probably should also render your CGI in high resolution, which is probably an expensive, lengthy undertaking. So but it only makes sense if you do the whole thing right. If you only do elements right, then probably you confuse more than what you achieve. And that is the reason why we feel very safe with Codex. They know and they keep our back secure on that. And the industry knows them, and the media we start with is the media we are using in the Alexa RAW, so that is all familiar, that's proven technology. That is also something we want to make very sure to enter with a piece of high-end filmmaking with as little risk for the production. And whatever you do new is of risk, there's no question. And That was the reason why we wanted to use the existing capture drives as they are, even with their limitations, and then you can build on that. But you also always could fall back. If something would not be as robust, you always would have this solution. This is the relationship with Codex. So they do this for the XT, and very much the same would be used, obviously higher data rates in the Alexa 65. And then there's a roadmap how to go higher frame rates, and then you need higher speed devices which are also in development. So there is the roadmap is laid out. It's not a lengthy one, but first we want to make sure that 24 frames look the best and there is no compromise made, and then take it from there to all the wishes of the industry. Any question, a landmark was Avatar. It changed the technology because of the success of this movie. There was this focus on 3D. Now the question on the kind of, are there any movies where you say, well, these are giving the taste of this immersiveness? I need to say yes, there are movies, Dark Knight Rising, things like that, but still the whole system is not yet there. Yeah? So IMAX is doing a good job, yeah? But if you see it from film, probably it's the best what you can do, but it is a very limited audience. If it goes digital, it is compromised. There's a lot of work going on, it will be there, but today it's not yet there. And that is what I was mentioning alongside with our development, and hopefully by the adoption with the influential directors and producers, there will be the consequences in distribution and exhibition. Otherwise, you capture something, but in 5 years from now, you can say, now we are ready to show it in the perfection we have made it, and we have seen it in screening rooms. Consider the Alexa 65 of an Alexa with the same image performance, but having 3 times an Alexa side by side. So that is the same pixels, the same basic concept of the sensor, but just scaled, yeah, from 35mm cine format to 65mm format. So it's the landscape and the real estate, and you fill in as many pixels, good pixels, yeah, and then obviously you have the Alexa 65.